What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If we haven't met, my name is Johnny Nitafan, and we have the absolute legend of Final Expense. The guy, the man, the myth, the legend. We got him. David Duford. Welcome back to the podcast, man.
Hey, Johnny. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Man, you are doing something really special in the Final Expense telesales space. Um, your agency, it seems like every single Saturday or Sunday, I'm logging in onto my Facebook and I see a new record broken. Talk a little bit about like how you've had like crazy success and what you're kind of seeing so far in the
Sure.
telesales space right now.
Yeah, so I made a purpose-filled decision in October of 2022 that I would turn my solopreneur business into an actual professionally run, professionalized operation. So up to that point, I was making great money. I achieved my goal of making a 500,000 plus in income without a single employee, and I got bored and I wanted more. And so I decided to take a risk. So, you start getting complacent, things go down eventually. I mean, we're doing fine, but I wanted to take it to the next level and kind of get
Yeah.
out of my comfort zone. So what had happened was I hired around 4 or 5 people, a couple of trainers for telesales and face to face, and a front man to help me interview agents. And kind of just starting off like, okay, let's see where this takes us and see how it goes. So things were growing. We had trainers in place that were better than me, Tim and David and Joe specifically, and things are going fine. And we're working on our systems, improving them. The first year in my mind was let's get operationally as good as possible, right? Because if your operations are strong, in this case, you can train agents and help them make money on auto cycle. Like that's a great that sells itself, right?
Yeah.
So once we really did well on the broker side, it was clear after about 6 months the trend in this business now is telesales. For us personally, Johnny, I've been 100% face to face up to COVID. Then we made the switch because the market demanded it. And now, as of 2024, 80% of our applications are for telesales only. It's just been amazing to see the shift. And this is true career wide. I mean, all industries are seeing
Yeah.
remote work now. Nobody wants to go to an office. It's great. I mean, I know I've been doing it for years. So the one thing we were lacking, though, and I was seeing others in our business like Dana Neeson at Lincoln Heritage, also Justin Von Meijgen, especially Justin, they were just crushing it with their free lead program. And and what's cool about this is that, as you go through life, you have these preconceived notions about how things should be.
Yeah.
But if you never get challenged on it or think twice about it, you're missing opportunities for growth. And I historically have been against free leads because on paper, the broker makes more money. And that's true on paper, more on that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was clear also that like Justin, for example, I mean, I think he was up to 2 million a month last year, and I sat there and watched it and how it grew, and I was just absolutely floored and amazed at how well he's done. And me being on YouTube, I recruit a lot of people from other MLMs, and very few agents ever came from Senior Life Services. So I'm kind of slowly putting all these pieces together, and I realized like maybe there is something with free leads. Maybe not everybody's meant to be a broker. We all as brokers think it's the smartest move to buy your own leads, maximize your comp. But that's not, as I found, is not true for probably 90% of the population. So we did the free lead program, a version of it, beginning at into 2022, 23. It was like an abysmal failure. I closed it down.
Yeah.
Well, we had a new person in place, Tim, and I said, hey, we need to do free leads. Like, I think we're missing the boat here. I think there's a huge opportunity here. And so we started it. And immediately, I mean, things were going well. Things are going good. And like any business model, you got to tweak things. There's a lot of systemization that goes on behind the scenes. And in January, we did 270,000 in final expense. In February, I think we did 500-ish thousand, almost doubled it in one
Jeez.
month. And then this month, we're looking at probably, I would say 600, 650 is going to be the goal. And that's just on free leads, guys, off of 25, 30 writing agents. Okay. And then maybe we'll hit 700. We'll see. It's March, spring break. Some of our producers have gone on break. So, but it's been fantastic. And again, the preconceived notion I had has been thrown out the door when it comes to free lead programs suck and you shouldn't do them. So I'm glad I was wrong.
It's what was what was going through your head to want to make that transition and pivot to really turning it from a one man business to really like a true business?
Yeah. So I operate now as if one day I will be sold. And I talked to my dad's business broker that helped him sell his company to Ecolab back in 2006. And we were talking. He didn't know much about the insurance business, but the broker is like, the problem, and my dad said this too. So the problem with your business is that you are the business. And as soon as you go away in a sale, so do a lot of the agents because it's a one-man show.
Yeah,
And this is true of not just my business, but other at the time, but also many businesses that are just, it's owner operated, right? It's not a true business. It's a glorified job.
exactly.
And so for me, it's like I one day might sell. I don't have any plans currently to sell, but I want to move my business towards the point where if I do sell, it is sellable. And that means turning your business into a system versus an owner operated style system. A system that autonomously operates without your having to like tinker with it every day.
Yeah, and I think like one thing that I've learned a lot from you is even if you don't have the goal to sell, you should build it as you are going to sell. And so what's kind
Yeah.
of your thought process behind that? Because I think I know the answer to this, but I think it's good to just know again and other people that might be listening to this to know as well. Like what's kind of your thought process behind that and how can it like overall like you see a lot more success than you would if you didn't?
Well, there's a couple of ways to go. If to sell an asset to another company. The other company is going to have concerns about will the asset continue to produce cash flow in the same capacity that it did before the sale, right?
Yeah.
And so if the owner, you almost have to, as the owner, work yourself out of the day-to-day operations and day-to-day decision making. Like you see this like with Alex Shamozy.
Yep.
He's not involved in the managerial side at all. Like it's his wife that does all the operational stuff, right?
Yep.
And so the reason for that is because if you die or go away and it depends on you, it's like I said, it's not really a business. So for me, it was making that decision of I got to put people in place that are intelligent, that are smarter than me, that are more capable than me, so that I can free myself up to think about the big picture stuff and that these better, smarter, more capable people can have the opportunity to scale up what they're given way better than I ever would, right? So all of this ultimately leads to developing an asset in a business that I think is more easily sellable
Yeah.
because I just own it, but I'm not responsible for every single decision that's being made. So there's one element. Is there another angle you wanted to go on that?
Well, that's good. Well, let's kind of go deeper into that. So,
Okay,
like, as you're wanting to like really build this out to where it's not running with you necessarily in the day-to-day decision making and ops side, um, what's kind of the steps, maybe 1 through 3 or 1 through 5, or how you got from that spot in 2022 to where you're at
sure.
now? What were the steps to actually get to that spot?
Yeah, number one, I recognize that you're the bottleneck to the business. You're the problem. And that you've got to figure out a way to get out of that problem. Number two, you should have a vision of where you want to be, right? My goal is to do, at the time, was to do 10 to 15 million in production. And, I didn't even think we're going to do necessarily be all from the Freely program. I know what to expect, where to expect it from. But I wanted to be able to say, hey, I'm about 4 or 5 million right now. I'd like to double or triple that, right? But then have systems in place and people in place to manage that. So you have to understand where you are soberly and what the problems are. And then you have to have a vision for where you're going. And of course, step three is taking the action to get there. And it's an iterative process that happens. And you try stuff out, you figure out what works, what doesn't, you toss it out, and you're always trying to improve, always trying to find ways to improve things. And eventually you start to develop an idea of what works well. Like for us, like I see the vision of where we're at now, and we're about 18 months into this business change. The free lead program 2 years from now is going to dominate probably 60 to 80% of our production, not including the downline agencies. So, I mean, we're already on track to do 600 to 700,000 this month. Where are we going to be a year from now? We've just been doing this for 6 months. So now we're paying
Yeah.
more attention. We're talking more about so you start to see this vision as the market tells you what it wants. And for us, it's, hey, free lead system and all the things that come along with it.
What was the first key hire that you made to start getting out of the day-to-day operations?
Yeah, Marty. So I got hit with a bunch of chargebacks from fraudulent debt. I got hit with over 100 grand in 2022. And thank God I was on financially stable footings that would have destroyed me, even 2 or 3 years before. And it became obvious the biggest bottleneck or the biggest risk exposure I was having was I was recruiting everybody with a pulse. And I try to qualify them to some extent,
Yeah.
but I would let anybody in that said they would buy leads and said they would do things. But of course, in this business, a lot of people say things that they'll never do, right?
Yeah.
Newsflash, if your guys are hiring agents, you
Yep.
know, that's the gold nugget of the day. So the first order of business is I never wanted to get robbed from it again. So I hired Marty to help qualify the people that we've talked to. Marty's an agent of mine. Never really had any hiring or experience. But he was resourceful and open-minded. So we figured it out as we went along. And we put in some other constraints to restrict access to our agency. And interestingly enough, you always want the thing you can't have. So I think in a way that made it more appealing to join us because nobody else does this stuff, or at least they don't talk about this like we do. We talk about this all the time, like, hey, we don't take everybody.
Yep.
We have to decline people every single week because they're just not a good fit. We have people yell at us because they're mad they didn't accept it. But that kind of language excites people who are players or studs. They're like, oh, I want to be part of that. It's
Yeah.
it's an exclusion or not exclusionary, but it's a tight team that's hard to get into. So Marty was critical because putting Marty in place, even with paying him his salary, fraudsters, when they see there's a risk, or I should say, when they see there's resistance and there's scrutiny that goes on the front end and now the back end, they go to some other IMO to try to rip them off. So that alone was one of the most important ones that we did. Oh no,
Yeah.
Johnny, you went dark.
There
There
we
he is.
go.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. This camera just sometimes goes in and out. But no, so that's good. So you brought Marty in, and then what was when did Tim really, or just like a sales trainer, right, in the picture?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of things, and I think I've felt this especially too, is this as the owner, as the face in a way, you
Yeah.
have to be the best, right? And I think it is true to a
Man.
certain extent, but at some point to be able to get out to really grow and scale the business, you have to put somebody else in place and let that
Yeah.
insecurity go, for me at least. So
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
talk through that a little bit of like, okay, bring in a sales trainer that's actually better than you, can speak to an agent more and more,
Yeah.
and really help them train that. Like, talk through that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so first step for me was like, okay, like if there's any ego, you got to let it go, like you suggested. Like it's called the Dig Agency or the Duford Insurance Group. It's like it's got my name on it. I'm the guy that should be. No, you. And first of all, you don't matter as much as you think you do. And second of all, you physically can't do it all at a certain level. At a certain level, you can't take everybody's calls. You can't cater to everybody's concerns
Yeah.
because you're not going to have the time to do the steps to grow your business with the unique skill set and knowledge and experience that you have. So at some level in your business, it may not be now or later, but you got to accept the fact that you have limitations as a human being and that also that you're not the best. And so I never had a real problem with that. I mean, I don't mind hiring people in as long as they cared. Their passion was the agent's success. That was the key thing, right? And so part of it that I had the blessing of doing is I hired internally. So I already knew Tim, David, Joe, and Marty firsthand because they worked as agents, and I knew that they sold. I knew that they cared. I knew their attitude, and so I already had a sense of I like these guys. I could get along with them, and I think they can make good leaders in the company. So that was yeah, that's what would happen. But I never had a hang up about not being the center of attention. For me, I'm kind of an introvert. I don't mind not being on, like I could take it or leave it, being the center of attention. Um, it's fun, but I don't care if I'm not the person responsible for the guy's success. I like seeing people, I like seeing my trainers like develop these people and all that they've done. It's been awesome,
Yeah.
so, but you do have to let go of the ego.
No, that's good. What are, like, when somebody comes in, Do you ever get in a way, like an objection or like somebody saying like, I want David specifically to train
No,
me?
no,
Or is that like that's
no,
non-existent?
no. It never happens. It's funny. Never really has happened.
That's good.
I mean,
That's cool.
I did expect that. I remember. So Chris Westfall runs a YouTube channel in Medicare, and he's the face of the channel, right? And he does Medicare supplements predominantly over the phone. He's been doing it for 10 plus years now. And I remember being at his office like 8 years ago, walking around in his call center, and the people would call in, and I overheard this call, and the lady answering, one of the reps was like, "Hey, this is Christopher Westfall's, or seniors benefits services, whatever his thing's called. How can we help you?" And then blah 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 from the client. The lady responded back, "Oh, Chris is busy right now. How can I help you?" And then they proceeded to help them and close them, right? So this idea that because you're not the one that's going to be the center of attention in your business anymore, people aren't going to be attracted to is hogwash. I mean, think Sean Mike. I mean, Sean doesn't do anything from a day-to-day training standpoint.
You
You know,
can't. There's no
he's
way.
he can't, yeah. And he's out there, he leads the vision of the company and he speaks publicly and he steers the direction of it, but it's his people below him and the sub agencies that are responsible for actually executing the strategy, right? And that's that's what I'm trying to build towards. That's what all of us are in a certain extent.
Yeah, that's really cool. You mentioned a little bit before, right? Like seeing agents develop inside the program and seeing some of your trainers really like develop these people at a high level. You've had some monster agents that like sometimes are just like it's hard to actually believe the production that
I
these
know.
guys are doing on their own pen, right?
Yeah.
For somebody to do 90 to $100,000 as an agency is kind of like, okay, cool, they're up and running. And then you realize that it's a solo producer, right? Or you have multiple people over $50,000.
Yeah.
What are those people doing to be able to get to that level of success?
Yeah, I'll say a couple things. The average AP in February 2024 for our free lead agents was just shy of 20,000 a month in that 1 month. And average app count was 22 apps. That's average. That's and the average of the industry, just subtract the two off the 22 and you got two apps maybe, and probably
Yeah.
zero is the
Yeah.
average. I mean, it's so I'm blessed. I'm thankful. And we're crushing it. I think so. I think here's I think some of the secret sauce behind what we've been able to do. Number one, we're very selective about the free lead program, more so than if you buy leads. And one of the big things that we instituted that I think made the big difference, and guys, this is subject to change because we're always trying to make this thing better. It's a living, breathing thing. So we're not fixated on this is our only way. We're
Yeah.
we're trying things out always. But the one thing that I think made a big difference is that we went to a sales experience only hiring model. So right now we only take people into free lead telesales that have outside sales experience. So like selling at Abercrombie and Fitch, that's not sales experience. Working a call center, taking inbound calls from angry cell phone users and then trying to upsell their service plans, that's not sales. That's not outside sales. That's inside sales. Outside sales is they've gone door to door selling pest control, water filters, or on the phone selling something, and they can verifiably discuss their success in doing so. And by us putting that standard in place, along with full time, we've always required that. But the outside sales, especially, the people we bring on just have a tremendously higher chance of success, as opposed to taking somebody who's not never done anything in sales and like, here's an objection, what's a rebuttal. Wow, and we do that with brokers, but we just don't have that same level of runway when I'm buying the leads because, look, it's at risk when yours truly is buying leads. So, we need to see results faster, right? So that's been a big thing. The other thing that I think has been very helpful, and it's kind of come with some pushback, being to be admittedly, is we reward the winners and the people who are in the middle or aren't, they don't get leads as often. So we developed a system where we're monitoring production on a multi-day basis, and we see based on how many leads they got versus how many sales they got, we will pull their leads or reduce their leads as a function of what their performance has been. You know this as well as I do. You're either going to make sales or not, right? This
Yeah.
isn't a multi-step call close. So we'll have agents who, one thing you got to be worried about, Johnny, is you could have an agent writing 25,000 production, but their close rate's like 4%. and you're sending them all these leads, they're doing well, but the company isn't doing well. We're breaking
Yeah.
even at best. And so you have to have systems in place to filter those guys out and say, hey, you can't just do 4% with this many leads. You got to double your flow if you want more leads. So that's been important too. And then to ship those leads to the guys at the top there's several people writing 40, 50,000 plus all the way up to 100, and getting those guys as busy as possible, and rewarding the people who are crushing it, and you want to reward those people. You want to give them as much runway as possible to write business.
Yeah.
And anybody who's a player out there, they want that too,
Yeah.
and so we're trying to develop that world-class sales model, like where the people who are studs, like they can come with us and make a lot of money because we're going to take care of them and we're going to favor them over the people who are mediocre.
I think that one plays into human psychology, but then number two, I think it's really interesting because you it seems like the leading indicator, the KPI that you're really looking at is what the close rate is on the total amount of leads, and then based on that, they're getting more leads or so. Is that
Yeah.
about right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's
Absolutely.
huge, yeah. And that's awesome. What are some like when you're hiring these people, one first question is like, are you taking insurance agents that are already licensed, or is it
Yeah.
outside?
Yeah, and we'll take anybody as long as they have outside sales experience and we feel like they're a good match. Like some people are jerks, and we don't hire jerks. Like we don't have time for drama. We want pleasant people. You got to deal with a lot of crap as an agent, as you know. And if you're arrogant or you just have a bad attitude, like you're just not going to do well, even if you have. So there's a couple of factors beyond just outside sales experience.
When somebody and I'm sure that you probably ran this scenario through and you've seen it differently, because what I'm seeing is like, okay, if you get a top producer, somebody that goes out and does 100,000 in a month, you kind of like open yourself up to risk in a sense of like them leaving and going and doing it themselves or whatever. What's kind of the belief that I might be missing, or somebody that might be missing, that is
Yeah.
wanting to build something like this, and then they're like, hey, A players are actually going to leave and do it themselves. What have you kind of seen on your end to be able to have and retain agents for so long?
Yeah. And our retention since we started in September is 72.2% as of the end of February, which again, 95% of agents fail. So I think that's pretty incredible. Okay. So yeah, this is an interesting discussion. And we're new to this. It may change, probably will as time progresses, but these are some opinions I've developed that have helped me be okay with a free lead program and the possible risk of attrition, right? So number one, the psychology of an agent who's on free leads is different from a psychology of an agent who's truly an entrepreneur buying their own leads. And there are just some people, if they do free leads, they'll just count the money constantly. Their head is in their own way, and they won't ever just understand that it's more than just commission. It's the system that also allows you to produce at higher levels. And those people shouldn't be in free lead programs. So you got to make sure you're hiring the right people with the right mental disposition. The other thing is that the vast majority of times, agents in free lead programs, when they go broker, they fail. And it's because of this psychological burden of buying leads for them is something that is usually just not customary. It's not normal to them. We probably under exaggerate the burden of buying leads as we're both brokers. But I can tell you the vast majority of the population loses their mind if they have a bad week or two and have to drop $1,000 each week. They're flipping out. Their spouse is flipping out. And this game is a performance-based activity. And when their head's not in the right space, they're not going to perform well. And a lot of this stems, and they make poor decisions on how to run their business when they really should have just been in just sales, not running a business. So the psychology of a true free lead agent is just happier. And this is what we've seen. And that's part of the reason the retention is so good. They're happier. They don't worry about stuff as much. They just have one job, and that's to sell the crap out of final expense. We hold them accountable to that, but they don't have all this other stuff that's getting in the way, like you and I have as a broker, which we can handle it fine, but most people can't. And again, one thing I've learned as I've gotten older is that just because I'm saying something's right and you should do this and it's okay with me doesn't mean that it actually is for you. And the other thing I'll say too, just an observation, excuse me, I'm sorry about my phone. The other observation is just with the competition. I never recruit free lead agents over to our agency. Justin Von Meijgen is on YouTube. He recruits people off of YouTube. He's got lots of agents. They do a lot of business. I never see a single agent coming over to me. I mean, like, and I know there's people over there that are writing 50,000 plus a month that if I give them the whole math breakdown that they would, I would think like you could do this on your own, but they won't leave. Now, why is that? It's because it works for them. They're happy enough. And so, that those are the things that are the big things for me. And I will say on some level, if an agent's been doing this for a year plus, we're not opposed to an agent going broker. I mean, and we can help them with that. It's just we know the consequences of it too. Lots of them fail. They don't write as much business. We had an agent that started last year who was doing free leads face to face, doing 25,000 a month, and he's at like 10,000 a month now. It's like, so what's commissions higher? Like you're just not making the same money.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, I think that's good because I remember when I first found you like 3 years ago or 2 years ago or so.
hmm
There was never the option of like a free lead. I remember like straight, like it was pretty much like brokers at that
yeah,
point, right? And I think like it's cool to see your transition and like seeing it real time from the outside, being like, okay, there's obviously some business sense in doing a free lead type program. But I think like in terms of the risk of doing something like that is high at certain times, but I think there's obviously quality control and inside things there to be able to de-risk yourself as well, which I think is
sure.
good. What are some things that those people that are producing at a really high level, like what are they doing on like a day-to-day basis to really produce at a high clip?
They follow the script. They have great attitudes. They have great work ethic. I mean, they just do what they're supposed to at high levels of activity. And one of the things we reward our top producers is we have what's called our A team, and our A team gets preset appointments from the Facebook leads. Jay, who wrote 100, just shy of 100 grand in February, he gets preset appointments for most of his calls. He gets like 90 to 100 presets a week, and he crushes it. And the reason we do, and he still calls outbound. I mean, he still finds time to call outbound when people no show and stuff. But we reward our top guys that are performing because with these presets because they're closers, you know. So there is the element of advantage they have. Like they're set up every day. They don't have to like they know, but they would be performing well anyway. That's how they got to that point, right? We have a culture of results, and if based on results, and you're doing well, we're gonna do some things for you. So, but there's a whole bunch of people in the middle between 25 and 40,000 that are just exclusively working outbound too, you know. But yeah, the thing we try to sell with the free lead program is this system that we've created. It's the system, man. The system of how we get the leads, the system of how we teach you to work them, the system of how we automatically follow up on them for you, the system of the feedback loop that you get from Tim. Tim is a great trainer. He's polarizing. He will tell you exactly what he thinks without any filter because he cares for you. And if you don't have a thick skin, it's not going to go well for you. But he will tell you what you need to do to fix and improve. And that's been huge for the success of our people too. You don't want somebody who's just going to pat you on the back and tell you it's going to be okay. Like you want somebody to yell at you a little bit to make an impact so you'll change these bad behaviors so you don't fail out of the business. So that's been important too.
Yeah, that's really cool. And to see the amount of retention that you've had on those types of agents, which is huge, but also doing such a high volume of sales with a fairly low amount of agents is like ridiculous. And I
Yeah,
think
I'm
like
I'm I'm
a,
thrilled, dude. Like I'm amazed at how I'm blessed, man. That's all I can say.
yeah, that's really cool. And I think like as that really grows, um, what are and this is like you can share whatever you want on this end, but like what do you foresee different bottlenecks to be able to get to like 1 million a month or like that next level?
I think at some point Tim will be constrained on his time to train, and we'll have to have some sub trainers, which is great because, out from this free league program, we're going to have people who want to do that. They're going to want a piece of the action, piece of a group of agent sales, so they can be more involved. So that's great, right? So we can provide and facilitate growth for the people that want to go in that direction. So that's cool. Um, Leads is always the question. How many leads can you pull out of Facebook? I don't think we're going to, our goal, I'd love to have 300 agents in the next 3 years. That's our goal. I don't know if we'll hit it or not, but even if we hit 150, it's like, okay, can we we're doing 10,000 leads a week now. Can we scale that up to 50,000 leads a week? I mean, I think so. I think with all the final expense that's going on, it should be doable. So I don't think that'll be a bottleneck. It's a really simple operation, Johnny. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you just need people, you need leads, and you need a system to facilitate the sales from the marketing that you do. And what you do at 10 people is the same as you do at 500. Granted, there's more complexity involved, but I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be some big bottleneck, you
Yeah.
know?
And I want to ask a question like one step back, right? If you were to do
Yeah.
this all over again, what would be like the step by step to be able to get there?
The free leads are just in general
Yeah,
the
the free
business.
leads.
Make sure you got a big pool of capital, right? Because there is a burn on cash to fund this and start it up. Like the things I didn't expect is the amount of money that I spent developing the CRM and the systems involved to distribute leads successfully. I didn't expect the expense on the Kixie dialer. We love Kixie, great for dialing. You should all use it. But for like 30 or 40 seats and some of the extra fixings with it, like we pay for that for our free lead guys. It's expensive. I didn't expect that. And then, figuring out the right marketing mix, like we've cut our CPA about 70% in the last month. And that's, what is that, cost per acquisition? So instead of, X, it's Y at a 40% discount. Like, so that's more bottom line income. So figuring out the marketing mix to drive your costs lower is tremendously important, because if you're paying too much, you can have productive agents, but not a profitable business. Pro tip there, eventually get your agents on 40 plus states. That's the big thing, because you got to have you can't do it on 10 long term. You got to have
Yeah.
40 plus states to drive costs down if you really want to perform at a low cost per lead, CPL. Those are probably the big things. And then come up with a system, an objective system to quickly get rid of agents who are not performing. For us, is if you don't write business in your first week, you got one more week to work the leads again, and then you're gone. But you need to also come up with a system to work to filter out the people in the middle, because there are people in the middle who are writing a little bit of business they're happy with, but it's not profitable to you because the close rates are low. So you need some sort of quarterly process to flush out people. Jack Welch at General Electric used to terminate 10% of the entire staff of GE every year based off of quantitative assessments of their performance. You want if you want world-class salespeople, you got to get rid of people who aren't world-class, because that will like reinvigorate the people at the top, because they see it's serious and they're part of something serious. And then the people in the middle are like, shit, I don't want to get fired, so that gets a little fire under their belly too. So yeah, there's some thoughts on some things that we're worried about. But yeah, it's the cash flow thing. I don't mean to go on about it, Johnny, but it's pretty important. The cash flow is king in this business. You've got to make money up front on the sales. So as much as you can, work with carriers that pay on issue to you and overrides. Make sure that your compensation is low to your agents because of all the value you're providing. You need to make a very large override to justify all of this.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, that's good. Definitely got me thinking about a lot for sure in terms of like really building out something like this. to really help agents really scale, right? Because obviously we got the coaching side for brokers, but then there are people that reach out consistently about the free lead side of wanting to really scale that up too. Talk a little bit about, and I want to pivot this conversation a little bit, right?
Yeah, you're fine.
You are a lot of pretty much everybody is coming from the personal branding side in terms of your YouTube content, the social media aspect side of it. How has like social media impacted the business that you have now, starting like
Oh,
years
it's,
ago?
I mean, it's the only reason I'm here, at some sort of scale. I got lucky and realized based off of my competitor doing it that I should get into it back in 2014. But it was the smartest move I ever made. And it's funny too. It's everybody undervalues what a brand can do for your business. Like here I was trucking along, recruiting a few people here and there during the last, up to 2023. And then we started free leads and like my applicant volume doubled, you know. And here's the scale I'm looking for. Here's all these new people coming out of the woodwork saying they want to work with me now because of what we've got to offer. So I can't stress enough, and this is something, we talk about in our masterminds with other agency owners, and I'm always on anybody's back that's failing to do this as quick as humanly possible. You have to build a social brand. You have to put your content out there. You have to do something because otherwise you're no different than the schmuck down the street who just got started. Whereas you may have all the experience in the world, people don't know you, so
Yeah.
they're not going to trust you, and your personal brand needs to be the bedrock to whatever it is that you're doing. Because
So
again, you can
what
have,
how do you start that, right? Because I've seen a massive like I'm so glad I started over a year ago, right? Like I'm
yeah,
almost a year and a half into this thing, and it's like it just gets better over time. It's like fine
yeah,
wine because you see people consistently coming in and they're like, dude, they know everything about me. They say
yeah,
things about my story that like I don't even remember the details of it, but I said it in the
yeah.
moment, and they're
You're
like,
like,
I remember when you
yeah,
said
I think
this,
I said
this.
that.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I don't mean to stalk you, but like I know this about you. And it's like, okay, it's out there, but like it just shows the depth in content, right? And shifting beliefs
Yeah.
and helping people understand the business. How would you recommend somebody to actually start growing a YouTube channel and building a social presence?
So I'm of the favor or persuasion of ready, fire, aim. Like the biggest problem I see with 80% of people who would do great on YouTube, 99% really, is they're too particular about how to get started.
Yep.
I say just pick up your phone, film some script training or something that is easy for you to talk about, and just put the damn thing up on YouTube and get it over with. Who cares what the results? Just forget the results
Yep.
other than you actually did something, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I mean, there's no easy way about doing this, guys. You're not going to know anything about this until you just start doing it. And that's how life is, right, John? I mean, nobody knows how to sell final expense. They get an idea of it, but then they start doing it and seeing it, and they start to learn from experience. And that's YouTube's the same way,
Yeah.
or any social media.
It's so important. And that's really like that has it seems like that has really bred like you've seen a lot of dividends from that getting in even to this business that you're in now, right? Like being able to attract free lead people.
Yeah,
It's all coming from YouTube and now it's paying dividends like years later.
right.
Um which is really cool. So, David, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, man.
Sure.
For a new agent or just an agent in general wanting to find more about you or reach out to you, possibly work for your telesales operation, how can they reach out to you and find you?
Yeah, so we train agents new and experienced to sell final expense over the phone and in person. We do in person as well. We have free lead programs for in-person and telesales. And also, if you want to buy your own leads, you insist on doing that, completely fine as well, over the phone or in person. You can go to davidduford.com. There's a video that auto plays as soon as you arrive there. Please watch that. It's 15 minutes long. It just generally tells about the opportunity, our company, and we'll give you some ideas of what we do as a good fit. And then from there, we do several live Q&A calls a week in a group format where we come in. I do those. I answer your questions about anything about our business because we want you to feel 100% comfortable before you end up applying to join our company. So again, davidduford.com, watch the video and take it from there.
Let's go. If you guys haven't already, subscribe down below. Share this with a friend if you found it valuable. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.